Hello, welcome to the first video in the Hanen Book Nook series. My name is Tamara Stein. I'm a speech-language pathologist and program specialist here at the Hanen Centre. I have a passion for developing children's early language, social communication, and emergent literacy skills. Here at the Book Nook, we're going to be talking about emergent literacy. Those are those early skills that children need in order to be able to read and write on their own later. So in each video, we're going to take one emergent literacy skill and one fun children's book, and I will give you a strategy that you can use to support your preschoolers' emergent literacy development. In today's Book Nook video, we are going to be talking about turning book reading into a conversation, and the book I have for you today is a really popular one. It's called Goodnight Gorilla by Peggy Rathmann. In case you haven't heard of it, it's a really fun story. This zookeeper is trying to close the zoo for a night, but a sneaky gorilla steals his keys and lets all the animals out of the zoo and follows the zookeeper home. I highly recommend it, and one of the reasons I chose it for encouraging conversation is because there isn't a lot of text in the book. In fact, a lot of the pages, as you can see here, don't have words at all. So it encourages children to use their imaginations and to take a look at the picture and make links between what's happening in the picture and what's going on in the story. So why turn book reading into a conversation? Well, research shows that children learn the most when they're engaged in positive back and forth interactions. So if you want to teach your child something, if you're hoping that they'll learn any of these emergent literacy skills, the foundation of a back and forth interaction has to be there first. So everything else builds on the conversation. When a child is engaged in a conversation, they're able to harness the knowledge they already have that's based on their previous experiences, and they can apply that to the story to better help them understand what you're saying and to learn new concepts. Also, when children are engaged in interactions and conversations around books, they'll take more turns and they're likely to spend a longer time with you engaged around that book, which means they have more opportunities to say what's on their mind, but they also have more opportunities to hear what you have to say and to learn information from you. So let's get started. The first time you introduce a new book to your child, you might find that they do want you to read the whole book through because it's new information for them, and that's fine. You might find that your best conversations are either at the beginning of the book before you start reading, when you're looking at the cover and talking about what might happen in the book, or at the very end of the book after it's finished and you and your child can talk about the story that you just read together. I do find that with Goodnight Gorilla, because there is so little text, sometimes children are ready to have those conversations even in that first reading. The first step to getting an interaction going is to use the Hanan Owl Strategy. OWL stands for observe, wait, and listen. So that means pausing without talking and waiting to see if your child sends you a message about something they're interested in. Depending on how your child communicates, she might say something about a picture she sees, she might point to a picture she's interested in, or maybe she'll just look and smile at something in the book. Once your child sends you a message about something they're interested in, what you can do next is follow their lead by making a comment or asking a question based on what she said. It's also a great idea if you can link it to something your child already knows about. So, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're on page 1 and you see this gorilla and he's looking pretty sneaky, and your child points that out and says, "Look, it's a sneaky gorilla." Maybe you'll make a comment like, "That is a sneaky gorilla. He looks just like that gorilla we saw in the zoo last summer." And then wait and see if your child takes another turn to keep that conversation going. The second time you read the book together, your child might have more to say because they're more familiar with the story. One of the ways you can keep encouraging conversation is by asking open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are questions that don't have a right or wrong answer. So let me give you an example. Let's say you get to this page in the book with the zookeeper's wife, and your child notices the zookeeper's wife. You could ask an open-ended question like, "How do you think think the zookeeper's wife is feeling when she sees the gorilla in bed next to her? And wait to see if your child answers that question. Once your child answers, you can follow up with another question, or you can make a comment. If you ask a question your child can't answer or doesn't answer, that's fine. If you ask an open question and wait anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds and your child doesn't respond, you can model the response. So if you ask that question, I wonder how that zookeeper's wife is feeling when she sees the gorilla in bed next to her, and your child doesn't respond, you could respond by saying, I think she's surprised to see the gorilla in bed next to her. And wait again and see if your child wants to respond to that comment. The next time you read the book with your child, because they'll be really familiar with the story, there are many opportunities to promote conversation. You could have a conversation before you even get into the story and see if your child could tell you a little bit about what's going to happen in the story. You could pause before a really exciting point in the story and see if your child can predict what's coming next. Or, one of my favorite ways to promote conversation is to talk about what you think is going to happen after the story. So, for example, in this book, the book ends with that gorilla sneaking out of the zoo for a second time and getting back into bed with the zookeeper and his wife. So I might say, if I was that zookeeper, the next day I'm putting my keys in the front pocket to make sure that gorilla doesn't get out of the zoo. And then I might wait to see if the child I'm reading with has any suggestions about what they think the zookeeper should do to get the gorilla to stay in the zoo. I hope you enjoyed these tips about turning book reading into a conversation. Let me know if you try it out in the comments section below. Also, if you have any great children's books that you use for promoting conversation, let me know. I'm always on the lookout for a great children's book. Have a great day and happy conversation building. I look forward to talking again soon.